where there is no law, there is no freedom refers to a specific kind of rule, a negative, general standing rule of just conduct that prevents us from doing harm to others. Today, however, law is, if you ask the man on the street what's a law, most people will say what? Well, a law is like what the government passes, right? The government passes laws. That's not true. They do pass some laws. We have laws against murder and theft and perjury and things of that nature, but it also enacts many, many other kinds of directives, especially legislation. What is legislation? Legislation is not necessarily law. It can be law. They can craft legislation in the form with the attributes of a true law, but they can also pass many other kinds of directives, and they do. Legislation, a true law, back again, is defined by its attributes. A true law has to possess certain attributes: generality, universality, certainty, and so forth. Legislation, by contrast, is defined not by its attributes, but by its source. Who made the rule? If it's a piece of legislation, it means an official constituted legislature has enacted that rule. And that could be the U.S. legislature and Congress, the House of Representatives and Senate, or it could be any of the 50 state legislatures who enact rules for the people within their respective states. But legislation is not defined by the attributes, but by the source. And as I said, legislatures can enact true laws if they craft it in with certain attributes, but they also craft things, they can also go to the opposite extreme and craft things, directives, regulations, all kinds of things that are not laws at all. In fact, they can even legislate the complete opposite of a law, which is a command. The pure opposite of true law is command. Now, what's a command? A command is an order that does not see, a true law governs only the means that we use to pursue our purposes. A law never tells you that you must pursue a particular goal. Instead, just like the Ten Commandments, it prohibits you from using certain means. You're allowed to choose your ends. The guy, as I said, who wants my wallet or my purse is allowed to want the wallet or the purse. But the law restricts the means that he may legitimately use. He's not allowed to get my wallet by putting a gun to my head and demanding it. He can try to persuade me and all the rest of it. He can offer me something in exchange for it, right? Try to buy it from me, whatever. All that's fair game. What he's not the law does not tell him you're not allowed to want the wallet. He can want it. He's a free person. He can choose his own purposes and ends. The law simply restricts the means that we are permitted to use to achieve our ends. You're not allowed to use the means of coercion. Now, a command, by contrast, is the exact opposite. Commands only have to do with, they order you to do some specific thing. And a really robust command will also order the means that you have to use to achieve that end. It tells you what to do, and also it tells you the means you have to use. It's the exact opposite of a law, which only ever governs the means that we use and never directs us to pursue a particular goal. A command is the opposite. It commands us to pursue a particular goal and often commands the means that we have to use to get to that goal. Let me give you an example, and then we'll close this session. Let's say we have an individual, let's say he works for the military, and he's here in West Palm, and his commander says to him, gives him a packet of documents. He says, take these documents, get in your car, drive on I-95 to Atlanta or Savannah. All right, let's say Savannah, that's right on 95. Take these documents, drive I-95 north from West Palm to Savannah, and deliver them right here at this address. That is a pure command. He's telling him what to do, and he's also telling him how to do it, the means he has to use. He has to go to Savannah, and he has to take I-95 to get there. That's a pure command. So now, all right, our guy gets in the car, and he starts driving up the highway. And let's say he gets up around the Orlando area and he hears on the radio there's a huge, accident and traffic jam, and he's going to have to, and the cars are backed up for miles on end, and he's going to have to sit in and gridlock for hours in the brutal Florida sun and so forth. But if he's going to follow that command, he has no choice. The command was to take the documents to Savannah and do so by taking I-95 north. He can't get off the highway, can't do anything. He's stuck. And so he wastes hours on end and all kinds of things, right? That's the result of a command structure. Now let's change the scenario a little bit. And let's say his commander gave him the same general order of to take the package to Savannah. So that's part of the command. But let's say he loosened up. He didn't specify the means that he had to use. He just said, "Here, take these to Savannah." So the agent in our case, the driver in our case, is free to use his own knowledge for his own purposes, as we say. Now, the same situation, he's driving up the road, he hears on the radio about this terrible traffic jam in front and so forth, but he's alert to it and he has that knowledge, and now he can act on that knowledge, that on-the-spot knowledge that the commander could not have possessed. And he gets off 95 and he goes to a back road and he's able to go around the gridlock and get to Savannah in a decent time. That's the advantage of using a rule rather than using a command. Because you see, the difference between a law and a command is whose knowledge is utilized in the execution of the rule. In the case of a command, the commander said, I guess he thinks he knows everything, the best way to get there, take I-95 and go to Savannah. But even the commander, brilliant as he may be, cannot know everything, and he could not possibly have foreseen the accident that occurred. So the knowledge is limited. Knowledge that's utilized in this example is the knowledge of the commander only. The person who's driving, his knowledge of the accident is useless. It cannot be used if he's going to follow the command. It's totally wasted. So we see a tremendous limitation of knowledge that's used in any kind of command structure in a society. The only knowledge utilized is the knowledge of the person who issues the command. Whereas in a rule-based society, such as a law-based society, where only the means are restricted and never and the end is not ordered, and the means are certainly not ordered. They are just, you shall not do something, not that you have to do something. In that case, our man on the spot was able to use his spontaneous knowledge of the accident to avoid hours and hours of sitting and wasted time and so forth. This is the reason, as we'll see, why a rule-based society, such as a free society, such as traditional American society, has been so enormously successful and prosperous. It's because by using rules instead of commands, you get to utilize all the knowledge that is held in society among all 330 million of us. And it's not restricted to the knowledge of the people who issue the commands, as it is in a command-based society like communism, socialism, fascism, and so forth. So I just want to give you a little, and this is where we're going to be going with this when we talk about the economic dimension of freedom. But for now, understand that when we talk about where there is no law, there is no freedom, we're not talking about mere legislation and certainly not commands, right? One final example of a command, as a legislated command, to show you that legislatures do not always issue laws, but often commands. If you all remember Obamacare when it first came out, the legislation that was passed by Congress said, the so-called Affordable Care Act, that every American has to purchase a certain kind of health insurance, and it listed specific things that you had to have in your package, the specific benefits, the specific coverage. It was very detailed. And so everybody had to buy this particular package of insurance, or they had to pay, I think it was a $3,000 fine. That's what the legislation said. Now what is that? Is that a law? Is that a general rule of conduct? No, it's a pure command. Not only does it tell you what you have to do, buy this particular insurance, right? And the means were left open a little bit. They had these marketplace of ideas, but you had to buy that insurance, so you were given a concrete order to do something, or face a serious negative consequence, pay $3,000. So what were the choices facing the American people after the legislation was passed? Buy this insurance or pay $3,000. Well, what if you didn't want to do either of those? What if you're a young person, you don't need all this expensive, fancy insurance, you don't have any money and so forth. You don't really have $3,000 either. But you have to do one of the two. People were forced against their will to make a choice among two undesirables from their perspective. Buy the insurance even if you don't need it or want it, or pay $3,000. That is a pure act of coercion, just exactly the same as the guy putting the gun to your head and narrowing your options. So this is to show you that legislation does not have the moral status of law, and we don't have the same kind of duty to honor it that we do, say, the rule of law, the rules of just conduct that secure and protect the rights of peaceful citizens. Okay, so that's our discussion of the relationship between freedom and the law. I hope you will take a look at Chapter 1 of our book, Freedom, Law, and Rights, which elaborates all of these ideas in greater depth. So this is taken right out of that chapter, so please look that over carefully and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, sign off for now.